of all, so that you all will know what's going on with Project 4, and then I'll drag it and put the zip file in Evernote. Let me open that up and talk about it in a minute. It will include doing things that we're going to cover today and the rest of Chapter 8. And so, but you actually will be able to modify a lot of the problem that's in Chapter 8 once we go over it. Okay, where'd it go? Here it is. And one thing that's a little different, I tried to draw that. I've got to change that drawing a little bit. Let's see. Okay, so the problem is going to be a continuation of the t-shirt problem. That's what I try to do, because in a real live situation, that's normally what you do. You maintain a program that's out there, or you change somebody else's. So this is the same project that you did last time on the t-shirts. The difference is you're going to design a GUI that will allow the clerk who you're purchasing the t-shirt from to enter. And the GUI, there's a sketch attached, like a napkin thing, like what was in there. I'll show you here in a second. And you're going to include the price of the shirt, the style of the shirt from a drop-down list, which if you haven't finished Chapter 8, that's what we're going to do in Chapter 8 today. You'll read from a text file and create your options menu, a drop-down. Then we'll have radio buttons that you will select the size of the t-shirt. And then there will be a field, the multi-line field, like we've already seen, that will contain the name of the customer and the address in a text field. Then you will calculate the price of the t-shirt on the second and third day. So that part won't be in your GUI. That's got to happen as an event handler. When you get the original price of the t-shirt, then you'll do your calculations. So it should be the same calculations that you did in your last program, your last project. And then when the user clicks the save button, the details are saved to a file called orders.txt. And I just put here what the details should include: the labels and data, and they should include the second and third day calculations after the original price is entered. So that'll make more sense when we go through Chapter 8 if you're not sure how to do all that. This is the drawing of what the GUI screen should look like. I just left off right here. There should be a heading size, and I forgot that. So I'll redraw this and put it out there. But shirt price is just going to be an entry field. Then size will be an entry field with radio buttons. And then styles will be a drop-down box that you'll read from the options from the file that I'll give to you. And then the customer name and address will be here. Then when you click the save button, the second and third, all three prices need to be in the data file, okay? So this is like the clerk is making a ticket that's going to be stored in a database. So that way they can see what everyone's purchased. Any questions? I'll see what you're supposed to do on that. Okay, we'll go over this on Tuesday. So that's when it's due, is next Tuesday. Okay, so let me put the whole thing, except for I am going to change that picture. Oh wait, let me take this out, because I don't want that in that's my version. I'll zip this. Oops, not that. So you'll get the styles text file. Oh, this one is not correct either. Wait a minute, let me get that out, because that was when I was running mine, what it should look like. So you should only get 3 files. That TIFF file is just a picture of that drawing I did. That's all it is, and I put it inside the zip file. So, oh. Okay, let's go down here at the bottom. Oh, I'm in the wrong. No, that's the right one. Finish chapter. Is it right? Yeah. Okay, so I want to drag this. Put it right there. Okay. Now, when it syncs, it should be available. On, if you refresh your Evernote now, that should be available, Project 4. Okay, so now I'm going to go, we're going to finish the Chapter 8 where we left off, which was last time what we did is we, let me see if I can find, oh, that's 7. 7. Got into 8 part way. Yeah, we created in 8 a GUI. We started with it, and how far did we get in? Did we did part of 8, right? Yeah, we did the napkin. Okay, we talked about the entry widget, the text widget on 261, I believe. Is that right? Do you guys remember where we stopped? So, yeah, we did text fields, and we created the file. We saw it. Oh, yeah, we stopped at 269. Okay, we're going to start today on page 270. Oh, yeah, and so you guys are always here anyway, so the ones who might accidentally come after this building shut down will think that we don't have class anymore. So the last week, May 1st, a week from today will be our last class in here. We're going to meet in Humanities 134, and I'll post it in Evernote, okay? But I just wanted to give y'all a heads up, and if you have a laptop, you might want to bring it because there's not computers in there. You don't have to have it during the class. I mean, we don't, but it will, you know, but you will need it the day of finals. And so if there's somebody that won't have their laptop the day that we take the final, you'll need to let me know the end of next week, and I'll try to make something available. Okay, so here is where we left off last time. I did figure out, yeah, how to make it scroll better after all this time. Okay, one of the HEDx deliveries went astray, and so what happened, and what the little narrative is that it tells you here, is that they could enter Cambridge, and it didn't tell them whether it was England or Massachusetts, and so things could get shipped to the wrong place. So when they entered here, they got shipped to the wrong place, even though in the address it said Massachusetts. They picked the wrong depot. So what they decided that they needed to do that would make this GUI better would be if they had radio buttons where they could select which Cambridge depot or which depot they wanted from a list of the 3 that they had. So here's what they did. That's cutting the side off. They created radio buttons. And when they used, first of all, they use the radio buttons. Anybody not know what I mean by a radio button? On a form, when you have the circles, it normally will only let you click one of them, right? If you click one, then the other one goes off. When you're on the internet and you have a form that you're clicking. Well, this is what we need to create here, is a set of 3 radio buttons where that when they click Cambridge, Massachusetts, they can't also click Cambridge, UK. It has to be where they can only click one of these. So instead of typing in the depot, they're going to select one of these. Okay, so here's the prototype. Here's how you create radio buttons using that Tinker software. It has, just like it builds the screen for us, it will build a radio button with a line of code. Radio button and app text equals, and this is the text that they want to be displayed by this radio button, and here's a second and a third. Okay, and then it goes down to the next part of the code. Now they've got 3, so they're 3 entry radio button widgets is what they have. And so when they test drive it, the only problem is that all three of them are selected, and it doesn't let you deselect. So they realize that's not going to work with just that code in there. So there's clearly something wrong with the prototype. There's only supposed to be one radio button selected at any one time, and yet the program shows all of the radio buttons selected together. So what happens next, these are called, they have created them as 3 independent widgets, which means that each radio button doesn't know what the other one is. So if you select all 3, it lets you do that. So what they need to do is create what's called a group. It's a group widget where that when one is selected, the other 2 are deselected. So they have to know what's going on with the other 2 widgets. Okay, so the whole point of radio buttons is that they work together. So they have to synchronize. So we have to figure out how to do that with Tinker. Well, the way you do that is you create what's called a model. The 3 radio buttons will be used by the user to record just one piece of data, one thing. It's going to record the depot, not all 3 depots. So that piece of data is called the model. So this is the model hidden away in your computer's memory. So if the Seattle radio button is selected, it will update the model with a new value. So in other words, those are just kind of being used as placeholders, and whichever one's clicked, it immediately goes and updates in memory and says, oh, this is the one I want. Then if they go click the next one, then it puts that one in memory and gets rid of the previous one, overwrites it, okay? So each time, that's what we need to happen. So the model will store a new value each time a different button's clicked. So let me see, I can't get that bar to go over where you can see all that, but this is, if you have your book pulled up, this on page 276, and it's showing you there, wait, is that, yeah, 276. It's showing you there that the radio button line of code there, what you can't see, it says this value is the one that will be used in the model. So the text is what's actually printed onto the GUI screen, right? But then the value is what's going to be stored in the computer model if they select that radio button, right? Follow? So what's going to happen in this case, the value is the same as the text. It doesn't have to be, but in this case it is. This is what's going to print on the GUI screen for the first radio button, and that's actually the value that will be posted in the model. And then you can make the text different from the value, but in this case we're going to leave it. So then if we go over to the next page, it says the system changes. So the Tinker library code will keep track of which widgets are using which models. And whenever a model changes, Tinker will let the widgets know about it. So if we select the Seattle, Washington radio button, it will update the model, and the other radio buttons that share the model will deselect themselves. So if we go down and pick that one, this is called, this code, the way this code works, it has a term, it's Python terminology, okay? It's not logic terminology. This is unique to the Python scripting language, okay? This is how this works. It's called a model view controller. The model is the data stored. The view is just a fancy name for the widget, and the controller is the code in Tinker that lets all the views know when the model is changed. So it's called MVC theory in Tinker. So how do you use models? Well, this is the way you use them. You create a model for the radio buttons to share. In Tinker, models are called control variables. So here's the code that has to be put into the program for it to run. You have to put in service. They've just come up with a variable named service. This is just a variable they've come up with, service, and they're saying let's make it a string variable. It's just like, you remember when we used int variable in chapter 7? That was the one that we used in chapter 7. So now we're going to use a string var, except this one holds a string array, or a string value. And so this sets the string var to the special value none, which means no value. So they want to be sure in the beginning that the model has nothing in it, okay? So that if they don't select a radio button, it will say none. It won't print out anything. So here, the radio button text equals first class value, first class variable equals service, and then remember to put it on the screen. You have to do the pack. So here's the next radio button. This code will now give us a pair of buttons that work together. These aren't the buttons that we're using in our program. They kind of switched out on you there and said, okay, we're going to give you an example that doesn't have anything to do with the one that we're going to actually code. But this is an example of what would happen if you needed to print out. Click the second option and the first will be deselected. But if you wanted to print to the screen what was actually, you could print by saying print service.get, because there's a function that belongs to that variable called get. And so it will get what's stored there, which is next business day. So you can print them out that way. It sets the model object back to first class, which will automatically select the correct radio button on the screen. So then you can set it to something different by saying service.set, which is another method. So this is a method that belongs to the variable because you said it was equal to string var. Well, the string var has these two methods with it. Okay, so here's the thing that they want you to do is in this section is to write the code using the fragments of code from the pool. Be warned, you might not need all of the pieces. So it wants you to set the radio buttons up the way they'll work with the model. And it tells you here, what piece of code would you use to make sure all of the radio buttons are cleared other than the record is saved, after the record is saved? Well, that's that one that they gave you that says depot.set none. That's what's going to clear them all. Okay, so that's up. We go to the one that's already in on page 280. Here's the code. It says label. Here's the lines that you had to finish it with. Depot equals string var. So anytime you create a label, that label is used as the variable name, and it says string, and it's setting it equal to string var. Then it's clearing, it's setting that variable to none so that there's nothing in it. And then it's setting up the radio buttons. This one, there's one Cambridge, Massachusetts, Cambridge, UK, and Seattle, Washington. And you can't see the end of it, but the values are all the same as the text in this case. So these values that are being set are all the same. So once it runs, it should look like this, where it's time when you find there's no depots selected, and that's what you want. And then whenever you click on one of the depots, the other one will deselect. So they are working correctly. Now, they did not actually code one like that, so we're going to modify. I'm going to open the one that we have. Let's see. Oops. Why is that not giving me? Oh, I know why. It's this one. Oh, no, that's the one for the project. Let me do this. Okay, let me get the one that comes with that chapter that we're going to look at. Google. The one that they gave us in the chapter that was already completed has clear to the end. So we're going to look at it here, which is this one. Oops. I have trouble without my mouse getting it to open in the right app. Okay, let me see if it'll just open with idle, maybe. edX. I think it's this one. Yeah, okay. This is the one that's at the end of the chapter. It doesn't have the radio buttons in it. And so what this one does is it is actually more like what your project is, except we have to be able to get the radio buttons to work too. So I'm going to take out this one part and save it. Let me save as, this is page, we want to make the radio buttons work. So I'll just say page 280. Page 280. Okay, so I'm going to take out the part about the drop down because, which will be, I think it's just here. The rest of it should work. All right, so if I was running this one, let me do the run and make sure. This is the one that's at the end that has everything except, okay, let me see what my window. Okay, so here's my window that says, and it took the depot off because we're going to put radio buttons there, okay? So here's the description and the address, which is what I want it to run. Okay, so now if I look at the code in the book, I think it lets me, I've tried copying and pasting it. The code that I want to put in is actually on page 280. So I'm going to go over here. I think it let me copy it before. Try it anyway. Okay, so I need, I think that one's already there. So I just need this. No, I need this, this. Actually, I need all that. Let's see if it'll let me do it this way. So after depot, oh, it does have those two things. Depot equals string bar, depot dot set. So I don't need that part. Okay. So I need to get rid of those. I already have them. Let me get rid of this. Okay, so, uh-oh. Well, I think it's going to make me, though, get rid of that one. There we go. Okay, there's radio button to there, pack, the next radio button, and the next. Okay, so this one, what's this note? That doesn't go there, does it? No, I copied too much. Okay, so what it should do now is it should use the code that's in the book, and it does have, it's not using this function. It can stay in there because it's not using it. So it should go in and do the depot, and it should give me the 3 radio buttons, and then the description field, and then the address field. So all I added was the code that's in here on page 280. So let's see. And there it is. Now, what I didn't get time to mess with, and maybe some of you, I don't know who else, like Shelby knows the Python, I think Jairus does, how to string those across the screen, because I thought it would look better, like even in the project, have them go across, but I didn't mess with it enough last night to get it formatted that way. So here it's saying depot. So if it works correctly, I should be able to pick one. And if I change my mind, no, I want Seattle, it took it. Okay, so now, and it won't save any of it until I click the save button. So even though I've clicked different ones, it's not keeping any of them until I click the save button. So if I say books, then I go down here and put 6410. And let's do, okay, so now I'm going to save this, and then I should be able to look at my file and see if it actually wrote it to the file. They were called, the file name was called deliveries.txt. The thing is, I've been using that file. I should have deleted it, but it should have this one is at the very, oops, it should have appended it to the very end, and it did. There's depot, Seattle, Washington, description, books. There's the address. So it did add it to my file, deliveries text. Okay, so that is actually the first part of your project, because you're supposed to put, you can set your screen up the same way. The only thing is your shirt price, you've got to go in, and once you get, they type in the original price instead of reading it from a file, then you've got to, you've got to go ahead and once they do the original price, you've got to calculate the second and third day. But you don't print it out anywhere. You just store it in the actual data file. So over here, yours would be modified because it would have more information in it. Okay, so that's one that's not in there. I can also put that in. Let's see, there's Evernote. Let me put that one of this down here is page 250, so that if anybody wants that, there's that one that we just made work. All right, so the next part in here is where we're going to add the list box. Find that again. So we're over the model 280. Yeah, this is it. So did anybody have any questions about that? How it works? Done. Everybody, you guys that are in here already know all this. Those that are at home that will figure it out. Okay, so in here, they want to expand it. They're saying, okay, if I had, say, 10 different depots, that would be a lot of radio buttons to set up. So he's saying, what can I do instead of having the radio buttons? In this case, my form needs a drop-down list box because I've got so many, like here, there's how many that I would have to list as radio buttons. So it would make a lot more sense on my form if I had a drop-down box, an option menu. And all languages have these options, even though they're not coded the exact same as they are in Python. You have a way to make radio buttons. You have a way to do drop-down lists. Didn't somebody in here say they had Visual Basic? Maybe? No? Visual Basic does this. You can do it with JavaScript. You can do it with even HTML sets up a form, but it uses JavaScript or any scripting language like PHP or one of those to actually store the data. But here's what we want it to look like. And I didn't actually draw this out on our napkin, but this is what the depot, they want you to be able to hit this arrow, and then you'll get a drop down to select from. Therefore, it doesn't take up so much space on your form. So you get, that's called an option menu. So the model stays the same in that you still have radio buttons, but actually the model stays the same in that you have a value being stored in memory. But instead of selecting from a radio button, it's going to let you select one of those options. And once you select one of those options, then that goes into the memory and is put into that variable there. So you don't have to list all the values like that. See, here's the first way they show you. They show you listing them all this way. But what they're going to do is have you read the options as a file, as a text file. So here's the way our file's set up right now. And the way they change it is they take this radio button stuff out and they replace it with where it reads in a file of the depots. So this is the code to do that. So that's what our last one was that I think I had open. Let's see if it'll still have it open. This one, nope, it didn't leave it. Okay, there it is. Okay, so this is the one coded that they have there. They replace the radio buttons. So your project, I'm asking you to have both. A field that has 4 radio buttons for size, and then you have one for the option menu. So this one, when it runs, it has just the drop down. So when I click here, I get a drop down which replaced the radio buttons. So I can go here and pick. I can still put there, put in my address. Oops, I put in a name. And so all right, so let's see. So now this one should have added to that same file over here. And there it is. It still works. So all I did in this case, all they had you do was to change your logic and take these radio buttons out and replace them with the options menu. So in your project, you're going to have this code plus the options and the calculation for the 15% off is going to be stored. So when you store your file, you'll not only have what they entered on the screen, but you'll have the, is it 15% off, did I say, each day? That's what you'll have. So you'll have 2 other values, and you can store those at the bottom of the file, or you can store them right when you right after the 15, or I'm sorry, the original price, $15. You know, make it work with 2 or 3 values where you data enter 2 or 3 values. Okay. And that is all that's in this chapter. That's all we're going to do on GUIs this semester. So there will be also a quiz out there, but I'll probably go ahead and let the quiz extend since you're working on this project. I will let the quiz extend past Tuesday. You'll probably have them all next week to do the quiz. So if you'll just spend the time working on the project, that'll be good. And so then next week, I will tell you on Tuesday, or I'll put it in Evernote, whether we're going to cover objects using chapter 10 in here, or if I'm going to give you a PDF of something else to go over objects. Okay. So you don't have to do 8 and a half and 9. What that does, those 2 chapters, which I didn't get to, just add more to the GUI. Like one of them's an exceptions box. That's what 8 and a half does. It adds a message box and something else. So if you want to add those, that's up to you, but it's not going to be required. Okay, we're done early again. You guys don't talk. Any questions? Anybody have any questions? All right, let me end this. Let me go back here.